Boas-vindas ao Yoga para Você podcast. Esse é o episódio 02 e nele nós vamos resgatar uma entrevista muito bacana que eu fiz com a Dana Fawcett. Foi mais ou menos 4 anos atrás, quando a gente estava começando o canal Yoga para Você. Foi a primeiríssima entrevista que nós fizemos e ela teve uma força e uma importância na nossa jornada muito bacana, porque nós sempre acreditamos no yoga que é para todo mundo, né? O yoga é para todos e sempre foi. Na verdade, nos primórdios lá do yoga, tinha toda uma segregação. O yoga era uma prática mais voltada para homens e infelizmente a gente encontra ainda em alguns lugares esse tipo de segregação, mas o que é importante ressaltar para esse propósito aqui é que o yoga é uma prática que tem o potencial de transformar a vida de qualquer pessoa. Qualquer pessoa, desde que esteja viva, tem possibilidade de praticar yoga e pode se beneficiar do yoga ou com o yoga. E essa entrevista com a Dana trouxe muito isso assim pra gente. Apesar do yoga já ser praticado no mundo todo com esse viés do yoga para todos, né? E a gente vê movimentos às vezes como o yoga para artrite, para pessoas com artrite, yoga para cardíacos. Aqui mesmo em Belo Horizonte, nós somos pioneiros num trabalho maravilhoso. Nós, que eu digo, aqui em Belo Horizonte, há um trabalho pioneiro da nossa querida mestra e amiga, professora, querida Sônia Sumarchi Vakami. Ela desenvolveu um trabalho lindo chamado Yoga for the Special Child, Yoga para crianças especiais, um trabalho que foi desenvolvido ali ao lidar no dia a dia com uma filha especial que ela teve, a Roberta. Então ela desenvolveu esse trabalho e hoje isso roda o mundo inteiro, ajudando milhares e milhares de crianças, e não só crianças, mas pessoas com necessidades especiais. Então, o que eu quero dizer é, o yoga é para todos e há muito tempo já se fazem trabalhos nesse sentido de levar o yoga para populações específicas, abrangendo uma gama imensa de pessoas, de praticantes e tal. Mas, no Ocidente, principalmente, a mídia ou a divulgação do yoga ainda foca, ou até mais recentemente, ainda focava muito num estereótipo de praticante de yoga, que geralmente eram mulheres brancas, magras, altas, muitas vezes loiras, como a própria Dana Fawcett cita na entrevista que ela deu pra gente. Mas enfim, tem esse estereótipo ou daquela pessoa muito calma, zen, tranquila, enfim, tem esse ideal, essa ideia do praticante de yoga sendo assim ou assado. E nos últimos anos houve uma tentativa, um movimento lindo de quebrar esses estereótipos, de falar, não, olha, o yoga é para todos, então vamos divulgá-lo como sendo uma prática acessível para qualquer pessoa. E a Dana veio nesse momento com uma força muito grande dentro da proposta que ela tinha, que era um yoga aceitando o corpo dela do jeito que é. Ela fala na entrevista que ela a vida inteira lutou contra o peso e passou por processos de emagrecimento e aí ganhava esse peso todo de novo, perdia de novo, ganhava de novo, a vida inteira então lutando com a questão do sobrepeso. E mais que isso, ela fala que aí ela começou a entender que não era só uma questão do peso, era uma questão de compulsão alimentar, né? Algo que a gente vê com muita recorrência na nossa sociedade. Então, ela começou a entender todos esses processos internos a partir da prática de yoga que ela foi desenvolvendo e modificou toda a relação que ela tinha com a comida, com ela mesma, com o corpo, num processo lindo de aceitação. Então, quando a gente fez essa entrevista com ela, ela estava muito famosa, assim, na mídia, na época, porque ela postava fotos lindas, maravilhosas, de fazendo asanas, né? Fazendo posturas de yoga, e às vezes de calcinha e sutiã, com o corpo bem exposto, assim, abraçando e aceitando a condição do corpo dela, celebrando aquilo, e era lindíssimo. Então, se você tiver interesse, procura aí por materiais dela, vocês vão encontrar fotos, várias entrevistas, tem muita coisa linda e que nos inspirou muito naquele momento, assim, no sentido de entender mesmo o yoga para todos. E essa quebra de estereótipo, que pra gente também é muito importante aqui no Yoga para Você. Tem uma parte da entrevista no inicinho que ela conta a história dela, né, dessa relação dela com a comida, e isso me fez pensar, e eu falo isso na entrevista, isso me fez pensar no meu processo pessoal. Eu sempre fui muito magra, inclusive assistindo a entrevista eu até vi com mais clareza quão magra eu estava ali, mas sempre fui magra, sempre briguei com a balança no sentido oposto. Enquanto a maioria das pessoas estava tentando emagrecer, eu passei a vida tentando engordar. E a minha relação com a comida não era saudável. Eu não comia para nutrir o meu corpo ou para me alimentar. Eu comia para não emagrecer mais, ou eu comia para tentar engordar. E com o processo também do yoga, primeiro eu entendi duas coisas. Primeiro é que não importa o formato do corpo, magro, gordo, não importa. É possível ser infeliz magra, é possível ser muito feliz magra, é possível ser muito feliz gorda, gordo, é possível ser muito infeliz gordo, gordo. Então, não é essa felicidade que a gente às vezes atrela ao formato do corpo, nada tem a ver com o formato do corpo. É algo mais interno, mais profundo, que a gente entende, a gente passa a perceber com mais clareza, e a prática do yoga nos ajuda, né? A felicidade não vem do formato do corpo assim ou assado. A felicidade, ela existe, essa alegria suprema, na verdade, ela já existe em nós. Não é o formato do corpo que vai trazer mais felicidade ou alegria, né? Vai trazer mais alegria ou vai consumir a nossa alegria, digamos assim. Mas é um processo, esse entendimento. E a outra coisa que eu entendi também, e aí foi mais com tempo de prática e aprofundando nas questões sociais, que tem a ver aí até com a justiça social mesmo, com as coisas que a gente está tão acostumado no dia a dia e às vezes nem percebe. Eu, apesar de ser infeliz, a maior parte do tempo eu era infeliz com o meu corpo, com o meu peso, tentando engordar, ainda assim eu não sofri preconceito pelo meu corpo ser do jeito que é. Então eu entendi ali também naquela entrevista e com os processos depois disso, né, nessa entrevista que a gente vai repassar aqui no podcast, eu entendi isso. Tem uma questão mais grave ainda, que é a questão do preconceito, que é a gordofobia. Não existe magrofobia. Igual não existe racismo reverso, né? O que existe é a gordofobia. O que existe é o preconceito contra a pessoa gorda, contra a pessoa com sobrepeso. Porque a pessoa magra, quando ela entra, por exemplo, no avião, no transporte público, ela não recebe um olhar esquisito. Nossa, será que ela vai sentar aqui do meu lado, vai me apertar? Ela não perde oportunidades de emprego, ela não perde oportunidades de relacionamentos bacanas, ela não perde amizades por causa do peso. E a pessoa gorda, sim. Então, eu entendi esse processo, a questão da gordofobia, conversando ali com a Dena e observando outros processos e o meu próprio, que era contrário, eu entendi isso. Então, a gente precisa trazer clareza, trazer consciência para os ambientes onde a gente convive, né? Enquanto yogis, enquanto praticantes de yoga, buscando mais consciência de vida, a gente precisa trazer esse processo de aceitação é uma palavra ruim, às vezes, quando a gente está pensando no outro, né? Mas de inclusão mesmo dos diferentes corpos, das diferentes situações, combatendo a gordofobia, combatendo o preconceito em relação às pessoas gordas. E a Dena faz esse trabalho brilhantemente. E quando eu fui incorporando isso assim no meu dia a dia, eu comecei a perceber como que isso refletia, às vezes, até nos meus alunos. Porque a forma como eu sei dar aula de yoga é baseada no meu corpo, né? Baseado na minha prática, claro, com todos os estudos que eu fiz, todos os cursos que eu fiz, mas independentemente disso, eu pratico com o meu corpo. E o que eu passo para frente tem a ver também com essa experiência que eu tenho com o meu corpo. Mas eu entendi que para levar o yoga para todos, né, para cada um de vocês aí do outro lado, com atendendo às suas necessidades, as necessidades de cada um, eu precisava melhorar o meu vocabulário, melhorar a forma de conduzir a aula, porque os corpos são diferentes. Então, as instruções têm que ser diferentes, a abordagem muitas vezes tem que ser diferente, né? E eu entendi isso observando a Dena, acompanhando o trabalho dela nas redes, e isso foi de grande enriquecimento assim para o meu caminho como professora e como praticante, claro, e como pessoa também, porque me trouxe essa consciência da gordofobia, né? Me trouxe consciência desse olhar para o corpo gordo com preconceito, achando que não é um corpo saudável ou que é feio, e não é. A Dena, por exemplo, eu acho ela linda, maravilhosa, eu babava nas fotos dela. Então, isso foi algo muito legal, assim, de ver e de entender que a gente precisa trazer isso para os nossos filhos, né? Para as pessoas com as quais a gente convive, quebrando esse olhar de estranhamento em relação ao corpo gordo ou ao corpo diferente do corpo padrão que né, idolatrado aí na mídia e tudo mais. Então, foi um processo muito legal, e essa entrevista foi crucial para mim, né, no entendimento disso tudo. Eu espero que vocês gostem bastante. A entrevista tá em inglês, porque a Dena é americana, ela não fala português, mas aqui embaixo nos comentários tem o link. Vocês podem acessar esse link e esse link vai te levar lá para o YouTube, onde esse podcast está postado e todo legendado em português, tá? Se você entende inglês, você pode ouvir por aqui mesmo, mas se você precisa das legendas em português, vai lá, assiste, curte, comenta, porque é de fato uma entrevista interessantíssima que traz um olhar profundo também para como que o yoga muda a nossa visão de mundo e a nossa visão sobre nós mesmos, e aí com isso transforma a nossa experiência nesse mundo, nesse corpo, ok? Espero que vocês gostem.
Hi Dana, we are very grateful that you're here with us, that you agreed in giving us this interview. We have been following your work with great joy and really amazed by how you're taking yoga to a whole new level in the media, breaking taboos and really showing that yoga is for everybody. Congratulations and welcome to Yoga para Você, Yoga for You. We know that probably you answered this question a million times by now, but would you mind telling us a little bit about how your story with yoga began?
Yeah, so I started practicing, it'll be about 2 years ago in May, this coming May. And I came to my yoga practice after really a year of sort of journeying to health. I had been, as I'm sure you know, a binge eater my entire life and always really struggled with my weight. I was always very focused on my weight, always focused on having to lose weight. And that was always something that was just this lingering priority sort of in the back of my head. So my whole life I sort of cycled between gaining and losing, and that happened all the time. So I would lose 20 pounds and then gain 20 or 30 pounds back, and then lose it and then gain it. And I did everything possible, everything you could think of to lose weight. So I did, fat camp for multiple summers. I did Weight Watchers 10,000 times, everything, personal trainers, whatever. And every time I lost weight, nothing changed. I always felt exactly the same. And I couldn't really figure out why it wasn't working, because I was so sure that if I could get my body to look a certain way, or if I could be smaller, that I would be happy. And I got to this point my freshman year of college. That was when I was my heaviest. And I looking back, I think I was also very depressed at that time. And it was just a very tumultuous time in my life. And that's sort of when I hit my breaking point. So my sophomore year of college, I went on this journey to health, and, was going to the gym, really trying to lose sort of a significant amount of weight, was starting to acknowledge the fact that I was binge eating, which is something that I didn't even acknowledge until that point. And as I started to get control over that and going to the gym, I lost a lot of weight. I lost almost 100 pounds over probably like that year and a half. And I got to that new body and still felt exactly the same as I had felt every time I did that cycle of gaining and losing, even though I had lost an entire person's worth of weight. And that was sort of the light bulb moment for me. That was the first time that I really understood that no matter what I tried to change externally, it wasn't going to change the way that I felt about myself. So that's when I started practicing yoga. And those two things weren't directly correlated. It wasn't like, I need to be enlightened and now I'm going to go to yoga and everything is going to be better for me. It was really just, I was home for the summer. There was a studio by my house that had a really good deal for students, like a summer special, and it was just available to me and I had time. So I started going, and that's sort of how I started practicing. And in the beginning, I really didn't like it. I mean, it was very challenging for me. And I sort of had high expectations of myself because I had just lost all that weight. And I was like, okay, now I can go to yoga and it'll be easy and I'm smaller and I'm stronger. And I went and found that, I really couldn't hold a down dog. And the people next to me were popping up into headstand or doing crow and jumping back to chaturanga and all of these moves that I was like, I'm never going to be able to do that. There's no way I'm ever going to be able to do that. But I sort of got addicted to practicing, honestly. And slowly, I think my yoga practice started to sort of replace my binge eating disorder. So anytime I felt triggered, stressed or excited or frustrated or whatever it was, instead of eating, I started practicing. And it just, it quickly became sort of the foundation of my life kind of on its own.
Nice. Well, I'm hearing you here and thinking of how my process was. Like, I have always been the really skinny one, always, but never like that. I was always trying to gain weight, to put on some weight. And it only changed for me when I started actually really not practicing yoga, but taking it seriously, understanding the thought, the teaching behind everything. Then I stopped wanting to eat just to gain weight, because I didn't eat before because I was hungry. I can't lose any more weight, so let's eat two plates of spaghetti, And that's how it changed, with understanding the yoga philosophy and teachings. But in different interviews, you said that first you thought that that your problems would be solved if you changed your body, right? What did you find in the yoga practice that made you transcend this thought?
Yeah, so for me, it really comes down to probably two things. Limits, the idea of limits, and the idea of worth, self-worth, self-respect, that concept. For me, it's, I always felt very limited by my body. I always felt very limited physically by my body, but also just in my life, because I allowed that to happen. I held myself back from doing things because I was heavy and I was afraid to put myself out there. And when I started practicing yoga, I had all of those same thoughts in my head. So the same limitations were present on my yoga mat that had been present my entire life. So, here I am trying to practice, trying to do these poses while telling myself that I was never going to be able to do them. I'm not strong enough. I'm too big for this. This is not for me. All of the excuses that I think everybody tells themselves, on some spectrum. And eventually, though, if you practice every day, you practice consistently, you continue to make the shapes, eventually your body starts to respond. And I was getting to this place where I was starting to get little glimpses of what was possible that I hadn't seen before. So, for example, trying to do crow and face planting over and over and over again and feeling very defeated by it. But then one day, all of a sudden, you float for a single second, your toe comes up and you're like, what just happened? And then the other toe comes up. And then one day you can hold crow and it's fine. And for me, that process was the process of understanding that limitations didn't exist in my body in the way that I thought they did my entire life, because I proved myself wrong. And I talk about that all the time, this idea of, I show up to practice sort of to prove myself wrong consistently. And as soon as I did that, as soon as I had this sort of paradigm shift where something I thought was impossible turned out to be possible if I just tried, that's a huge, that's a shift in your entire life. Or for me, that was the first thing that really translated from my yoga practice into other areas of my life. So I started looking at my reality and asking myself, how much of this is, how much have I been holding myself back, or what have I not been doing because I've been telling myself I just couldn't do it, or I wasn't worthy of doing it, or, whatever it was. So understanding that limits that I thought were external were really internal, and I had made them up and they were in my head and it was a mental thing. That was a huge realization for me. So that's one of the most important things in terms of my yoga practice and what really shifted my life. And the other is that the idea of worth. I actually just taught a workshop yesterday where I was talking about this concept of, congratulating the people in the room just for the fact that they showed up for themselves. Because a lot of the time, and I've realized this as I've practiced more and more, people just don't feel generally worthy and deserving of good things and love. And, we're just very hard on ourselves and sort of accept negativity more quickly than we can accept positivity. Or at least that's a trend that I've noticed in my life. And so for me, just the idea of getting to a place where you feel, okay, I'm deserving of this time to show up on my mat every day just for myself, just for this time for self-care. I'm worthy of that. And that in itself is a huge, huge realization that I think absolutely, translates to other areas of your life. If you can give yourself the discipline of, okay, 20 minutes a day or whatever it is, or even if you're sitting in meditation for 5 minutes or breathing or whatever, if you can give yourself that just because you believe you deserve it, that's the kind of thing that really transcends so much, negative talk that we can tell ourselves that I think we get used to,
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, you talked a lot about what I also believe that yoga does for us and for everybody. But is there anything else that you think that's why yoga promotes so many changes in people's life?
I mean, I think, again, for me, it's this concept of the limits and the self-worth. And I think that is relevant for every yoga practitioner on some level. But to me, yoga is so powerful because it's just you. And I think it's very uncommon, especially nowadays, that people get to face a challenge in that way. Something that's, okay, I'm going to show up, I'm going to do this. There's no one here to help me. There's no shortcuts. There's no tips or tricks or anything like that. I'm just going to do it without the expectation because it's the best thing that I can do for myself. And I think that whether it's yoga or something else that fits that criteria, that kind of dedication to yourself really gives you a lot of answers, and it gives you answers to questions that maybe you A, didn't know you were asking, or B, the ones that you sort of mask. I think a lot of life in general is sort of day to day just suppressing everything that happens and emotions and just the way you're actually feeling about things. And and our own patterns and cycles and tendencies and the stories we tell ourselves and all of these things. For me, if you practice, you come to whatever realization it is that you needed to come to sort of just live a better life. And that's really what it is. It's just, how can you live a life that is the best version of the life that you want, and sort of the highest version of yourself. And for me, it's going to be different for everybody, but the practice is what brings you there.
Yeah. Here in Brazil, and I don't think it's only here in Brazil, we notice sometimes that there is still a subtle belief that to practice yoga, you need to be thin, flexible, or the Zen type, you know what I mean? And what could you say to those who think they can't do yoga just because they don't fit in that pattern?
Yeah, I mean, that's all over the place that people feel like that. I mean, Western yoga world is certainly like that, and you're bombarded with, when you see yoga clothing companies and things like this, the models always look the same. They're usually white, they're usually thin and tall, and probably even blonde most of the time. And it's kind of hilarious to me, honestly, because you think about the origin of yoga, and that's so incredibly far off from what the actuality is. It's actually predominantly male even, so it's kind of funny the way that we see those things, but that's what the Western yoga world does, or the Western world in general. But for me, it's sort of like going back to the concept of the physical body and external versus internal. For me, yoga is entirely in itself a practice of non-attachment, right? That's sort of like the point of the practice. You don't attach yourself to your body or to the poses or to anything, and you learn how to do that in your life in general. So if it's a practice of non-attachment and your physical body changes all the time, right? Your body is a transient thing. It's going to change in 10 years. It's going to change tomorrow, whether you like it or not. It can't possibly be a determining factor in whether or not the yoga practice is right for you, right? Yoga is an internal practice with external manifestations. So, to even think about it in that way, that any certain body would not be able to practice yoga, it doesn't even make sense. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it also just doesn't make any sense. It's an inner journey, and it's a spiritual journey, and it doesn't matter if you're showing up every day and practicing Ashtanga primary series or doing some crazy advanced practice, or if you're doing like easy modified sun sals, or you're just like hanging out in pigeon on both sides for a few minutes. Who's to say that one person's yoga practice or one person's spiritual journey through that particular asana is better or worse than anybody else's? It's just bullshit. And this comes so much from, social media especially. And so I feel, very lucky to be able to show a different side of that, because people are already insecure to go to a yoga class because we all have our own demons. And then on top of that, you're bombarded with this image of what the right yoga person looks like all the time. And, if there's anything that I can bring, it's just, to give people the permission. Unfortunately, we feel like we need it, but to give people the permission to just say like, no, I'm allowed to do this for myself, and it doesn't matter what I look like.
Yes. We noticed that a part of your work is done over the internet, right? Like your project called Making Shapes.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that it's an amazing way to make yoga accessible to everybody, to reach people out there. And how do you think that yoga classes online are an effective way of sharing and practicing good quality yoga? How is that working for you?
Yeah, I think it definitely can be. I mean, I think it's a tricky question, because we're in a time now where there are so many yoga teachers. Yoga over the last few years has definitely been on like an upward trend, and there are a lot of people coming out of teacher training. So there's definitely sort of an overabundance, I would say, of yoga teachers. And so that can lead to really needing to narrow down to find the teacher that's right for you, the one who's going to A, keep you safe in your physical practice, and B, who you can actually relate to as a person and whose story resonates with you. Because for me, I teach from the place that makes sense to me. I teach the things that resonate with me as a student and as a practitioner, and that's going to be different for every single teacher. So I'm not egotistical enough to think that I'm the best teacher for every single student out there. And I know that that's not the case. But for me specifically with the online classes, what I'm trying to offer there is basically a place for people who are maybe too nervous to go to a class in person, especially if you're bigger bodied, right? Anyone is nervous to go to their first yoga class, regardless of what you look like. When you have a bigger body, or the way that I've experienced having a bigger body is sort of feeling like all of your insecurities are literally exposed on your body. And that can make going to a class so much more just terrifying than it can for just any average person. So for me, it's about kind of creating a space for those people who want the comfort of being able to practice in their own home, but want to learn from a teacher who looks like them and who understands the body in a way that they understand it. Because it's very different. The cues are different for different body types. And the way that I teach to someone with a larger body is very different than the way I'm going to instruct a pose to someone who doesn't have a belly or big thighs or sort of excess, weight to deal with. So it's sort of just about creating a safe space. And I do think that online content can be very effective, but you need the right teacher, especially if you're going to practice at home and you don't have someone there to watch you and make sure you're being safe with your alignment and things like that. The key really is finding a teacher who can keep you safe and who you feel comfortable with.
Sure, agree. Well, last one. What could you say to those people who are just struggling to begin their practice?
There's a lot I could say, but really my biggest encouraging word is really that if you're feeling any sort of inclination to try yoga or to whatever, even if it's not yoga, to just do something that's good for yourself, just do it. Because there's no reason not to. There's no reason not to. And the thing that gets in the way is just not believing. Again, not believing that you're worth that time. And if there's anything that I could say to sort of a mass, group of people, it would be that you are worthy of that time. You are worthy and deserving of good things. You're worthy of time for self-care. So it's like, as soon as you get that feeling in your heart that you want to do that thing for yourself, you have to just go for it. You have to go for it. And whatever that looks like. And you have to do it without any expectation, right? So don't go to yoga to lose weight. Don't go to yoga to do a headstand or whatever it is. Go because there's a real, true internal intention that's drawing you to the practice, because that's also what's going to make it stick, right? If you're going for a workout, if you're going for weight loss or whatever these things are, you're really still just sort of running from yourself, in my opinion. It needs to come from a place of, I'm looking for, something more than that, something internal, something that's not external. And I think when it's grounded in that place, that, the practice is so much more rewarding and can also be a lot less scary. So, just the way that you think about it, the perspective going into it can matter so much. But, the best advice is to just go, to just try.
Yeah, and I also think that if you change your search for, instead of looking for something, just really wanting to accept yourself as you are, accept things as they are, the moment you sit on your mat, it is what it is. I think it makes a lot of difference in the practice.
Exactly. I agree.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much for giving us
You're welcome.
This interview, sharing a little bit of your life and your time with us. We really hope that your work keeps on reaching for all of those who need it, and you keep up with this amazing job that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thanks for talking to me.
Oh, thank you for talking to us. Namaste.
Bye.
All right.
Excelente, pessoal. Espero que vocês tenham gostado, que essa entrevista sirva de inspiração para vocês, para olhar para dentro, não só nos seus processos pessoais, de lidar com o seu corpo, né? Mas também de lidar com o corpo do outro, de olhar para o corpo do outro. Tem uma coisa que eu falo muito com as minhas filhas e que eu acho que foi muito importante. Não se comenta sobre o corpo do outro, nem com elogios, nem com comentários ruins, degradantes, né? Corpo é corpo, cada um tem o seu, e a gente não precisa fazer do corpo do outro um objeto de observação e de comentários, colocando todas as nossas impressões, porque são só as nossas impressões. Então, eu espero que a gente possa levar isso adiante, aprender com isso, aprender com essa entrevista e trilhar caminhos de mais consciência. Muito obrigada pela participação. Om Shanti.